Okay, here's the last of the two videos, or the second of the two videos. And this time what we're going to look at is we're going to look at Gradebook or Grade Center, and then we're going to do an online test, or at least I'll show you how to do basically. I won't go through it all because I don't want to put in 20 questions. And we'll do an archiving of your course. Okay, so let's go over. This is an empty shell. It's just a shell that was developed for us. So you're all in, well, not all of you are in here. I think there's one of you missing, but nonetheless, it'll be all right. Okay, first things first, we're going to go to, oops, let's close that up. Grade Centers right here. And you go right into Full Grade Center because you want to set it up. And you're going to see here you all are. So all your student lists will be here, and the username will be there. Student ID would be if you wanted to, create more anonymity and you want to have a course ID for a student. We can see that Rebecca has already come in on the 14th, and it just indicates whether or not they have Blackboard available. Now, when you log into Blackboard for the first time in your course, you'll have a weighted total and you'll have a total. And you'll have to create the other columns. Now what I've done is I've created test 1, assignment 1, here let's go right down, assignment 2 and test 2, and I want to do a test 3. So anytime you're creating any of these basic columns here, all right, you're going to create a column. And it's going to pull you up to the same sort of interface. You name it, in this case test 3. And you can name it something else for Grade Center, but I don't find it necessary. Now, if there's any detail you want to put in here, you can put it in here, right in that section. But normally what it's going to do is going to come up with a score. So whatever you indicate your points to be, we're going to say 50. The score that we're representing in Grade Center under Test 3 will be their score out of 50. Now, as much as we all know that's fairly straightforward to figure out what the percentage is, not all of the scores that will, points that you can get will be equally, will be so easy. So I usually put in the secondary display as percentage. So although this is straightforward, 30 out of 50 is 60%, not all my tests are out of 50. And not every student is academically inclined to want to figure out their percentages. So this does it for them. So it'll set a score with a bracket and a percentage out of 100 that score represents. Now here what you can do is you can put in the date that you want the test to be acknowledged on. So I'm going to go ahead here and put it in March. I'll put it in April actually, and I'll put it on the 5th. And I'm going to set the time to be the time of the class. We'll say it's noon. Okay, and then down here it's already defaulted to the column will be in Grade Center, and you want it to be a part of the calculations, that it's going to be shown to students. I don't typically do this third one. I don't really think it's necessary that students know where they stood in the class. It's not a competition, but some students really want to know that. If the class is in agreement, I'll do it. Otherwise, I typically don't. And then you submit. And that's all there is to creating a column. Now when we scroll across here, we'll see there's test 3. Now my experience has been that this order and all of these columns aren't all necessary. I don't typically need username or student ID, and I don't want weighted and total to be at the front. I want it to be at the back. So if I want to reorganize these, then I need to use under Manage, I come right down here to the middle where it's Column Organization, and I click on that. Now here it gives me a few options. Last name and first name are frozen, which means you cannot delete them or get rid of them or hide them. But these I can. So what I can do is I'm going to say username and student ID, I want to hide them. And so I'm going to hide those selected columns. Now they're grayed out here, but they won't be seen in Grade Center, so it limits the amount of space taken up by unnecessary columns. Now that doesn't mean they're unnecessary at all under all circumstances. There may be needs for them for different courses, different teachers. Now under the grading columns that I've created, you see the order. It was weighted total, total, test 1, assignment 2, test 2, test 3. Now I don't want that order, but this is an easy way to do it. Just grab the little X, click on it, and drag it down. And it goes to the bottom or wherever you want it. And so I usually like to have the weighted total followed by the total. Alright, so there's the first thing that's going to be done, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. And I have them in the order that I want them in. You can see that I've got dates here for them. And so everything's fine for me this way. And I'm going to go submit. Now, those two columns that I didn't want aren't there. And my columns are now in the order that I wanted them. Now, the only thing that hasn't been done is weighting them. Not everything is weighted the same. I've got 5 items. They're not all worth 20%. So I go to the weighted column and click on the chevron. This is my editing tool. And I want to edit the column information. So I click on that. Now the window it's going to pull up, I don't want to change anything out of here. I want to come right down to this bottom section. Now here are the potential weighted columns that we could use, but I'm not wanting to weight the total. I want to weight test 1, test 3, test 2, assignment 1, and assignment 2. So what I'll do is I'm going to click and move, click and move. Now you could click and do your control button and click and then move them all over. Ultimately what you want in the column on your right here is every column that you want to have a weight to. You know, whether it's worth 15%, whether it's worth 20% of the overall course. And then what you can do is you start clicking in what they're worth. So test 1 is going to be 15%. Test 2 is 15%, and test 3 is 15%. Now, as you can tell, I got 45%. And so assignment 1 is worth 20. Well, we'll say 25 actually. 25. And then this is going to be worth the remaining 30. Whatever your, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I pushed, I'm going to go back here. I just pushed enter and I shouldn't have. I'm going to come back, I'm going to scroll down. Whatever your columns are and whatever your weights are must calculate to 100%, and it'll indicate down here whether or not it is. If it's not, find another assignment or a test that you can put in there or something that takes up that extra percentage. These must work out to 100%, otherwise the columns won't calculate correctly. Calculator running total, it just means that every time you've entered something into a column as a test result or an assignment result, it runs the total to weighted and the final total, so they keep an accurate, up-to-date perspective. Show the column to the student. I don't mind them seeing it. It gives them an idea of what they're currently getting out of the weight of the assignments and tests, out of how much of it. So if we've done 75% of the course, they're getting an idea of what their mark would be out of 75% of the course. And show statistics and averages, I don't do that typically, but you may find it beneficial. Then I submit that. Now the columns are set up that whatever I put into test 1, it's out of 50. And we'll say Becky here, Ace did a good job of it and got, got 45. Make sure it's yellowed. And then enter. You see she got 90%. The weighted total would be 90%, but the overall total is marked out of a score. Now if I wanted them to have access to that too, I go back to edit column and I edit in my total, and I can put up, well, I want the percentage there as well. Now you see you have options. You can put a text that is like a letter, which is down here, sorry, a percentage, or complete, incomplete, you did or didn't get it done, or maybe you needed to put some words in there, pass or fail. I like to use percentage. Include total on all grade columns are selected. I want them on all. Collect as a running total, yes, and the same is true with the bottom ones, and go submit. And now she's got a current standing. Now if we put it into assignment here and it was out of, I think I put it at a 35, and let's say she got 30, another good result. Way to go, Becky. 85.71. So now we get an overall total so far of 88.24%. The weighted total based on the percentage is 87. It's never quite the same, and what I usually tell students when it comes to Grade Center, it's not 100% accurate from the point of view that my Excel spreadsheet calculates ever so differently, but I find it to be more accurate. It is a numerical or arithmetic difference between the way that Grade Center calculates and the way that Excel calculates. But I usually indicate to them that this is reasonably accurate to the point that your mark won't dramatically change over 5%. It'll change over 1 or 2% potentially. Okay? And that's essentially all there is to Grade Center. Now, if you have built a test or a journal and you've indicated you want it marked and graded, that is to say they can do a test based on their answers from the test, that result will go directly into Gradebook. Now the difference being is that you won't need to put in test 1 if you've done an online test. It will create its own column and put the scores for each test in here, and you can designate some conditions for that, given the kind of test you're giving. And so what you'll have to check is excuse me, as you go through this semester, if you've done that, your weighting will be different. When you set up the tests in each increment period of which you're doing a test, there will be a different column set up for each one, and you'll see the marking in there. You didn't have to input it. Now if you've given a test in class and you've picked up the paper and you marked them, then you will be putting the scores in here like that. Okay? Same with the journal. If you indicate that you want the journal to be graded, it will create a column in here. I'll show you. I'm going to go take you to one of my classes. We'll go to Introduction to Psych since we were there, and we'll go to Grade Center. Now what you'll see here is Intro to Psych. This was a test online, and so was the Psych Test 3, and so was the journal. And so these get put in automatically once they complete them or once I've graded them in journal. Okay. Now if you want to create a test, I'm going to go back down to the developmental shell. We'll go into Document Center, and let's say I want to create a test. What you do is you go to Assessment, Test, and it's going to give you some options. I'm going to create a new test. Okay. Now here's where I can name it. Test 1. Put the instructions. It's a multiple choice, 50 questions, or whatever you're going to put in there. Any other instructions you need to give, you put there. I'm going to submit as is. So there's no questions currently. I got to create questions. So I can create any number of types of questions if I want to do multiple answer or multiple choice. Let's say we do a multiple choice. Now it'll give me a place to put a title. I can put, test number 1. I put in here the question for multiple choice question number 1. The answering number, well, we're going to do it as in 1, 2, and 3, A, B, C. You indicate how you want them listed, vertical or horizontally. I like it vertical personally. Allow partial credit. It's a little tough with a multiple choice, but you could create it where if now, I typically wouldn't do it in multiple choice. You might do it in short answer or fill in the blank kind of thing. And show answers in random order. You can click that if you want. Now I want to do it with 4 answers. So the correct answer is currently defaulted to 1. I put in answer number 1, which would be A. Answer number 2, which would be B. Answer number 3, which would be C. And answer number 4, which would be D. And whichever is the correct one, you put in the indicator that it's the answer. And you can offer what the correct, some feedback for the correct answer. Way to go. Or incorrect. Please check page 35 in your textbook. You can create categories, topics, levels of difficulty, keywords. These aren't usually too frequently used, but they are options. And if there's any other instructor's notes for this question, then you put them here and then submit. And you would do that 20 times, and that would create your online test. I haven't put anything in there, so that's why this goes there. Now, another option would be, aside from any number of options you have here, is you could reuse questions. Maybe you've created questions before. You could locate them, or if you want to create a question set, which would be a collection of questions that could be used to create a test in Blackboard, or create a random block. And I often do this, where what I'll do is create a test of 200 questions, and I'll create a random block of 50 or 40 or something like that, and it will randomly select from the 200 questions which ones will enter for each student. And as each student does it, it randomly selects another question. So in that instance, if I know that students are doing this online and they're going to be side by each at a computer, they won't each get the same question. And that's essentially what you do for an online test. Okay, now the last thing I'll do on this is, if you want to, I'm going to go to a course that I currently have open. I'll do Intro to Psych. Okay, now if you want to archive your file, you go to Packages and Utilities. And we'll scroll down a little bit so it's easier to see. Export and archive a course. Now your first screen will indicate, well, you got to select. Are you going to export it? Export it means you're just going to take the stuff and put it in another file on your computer. Archiving it makes it easier for you to bring it back in if you're going to teach that course again. So archiving is usually very useful. It identifies the course, so you confirm that is the one I'm doing. If you want to include Grade Center, it is a bigger file, but you might want it. I usually include it. Now you can calculate the size. It's saying it's going to be 39.5 megabytes, and if that's okay for your memory stick or your computer, then that's what you do. You submit it. Now watch what happens here. You get nothing. Up here it says success. This action has been queued. An email will be sent when the process is complete, and then that will tell you, it'll give you instructions of where your archive file is. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you on Wednesday, or I guess I will see you on Wednesday before you view the videos, so this kind of is redundant. Bye for now.